Welcome to another episode of Equip Podcast. My name is Peter McIntyre.
And I'm Josh Roberts.
We're both pastors at Sovereign Grace Community Church in Front Street in Thayer, and we'd like to invite you to join us every Sunday morning at 10:30.
That's right. We're continuing to talk today about the qualifications of elders and deacons within the church as a sign of whether or not it's a legitimate church, being under the headship of Jesus Christ, who has orchestrated certain qualifications that must be met in those individuals.
Yeah, and if you find any of these qualifications lacking, then it's your duty as a member to pursue that these all get shored up, and or come to a biblical church that's already paying attention to them. Again, we're at Front Street.
Yeah, I think it's wise, as Peter has put it before. We are commanded in Scripture to be wary of false teachers, and so one of your primary duties as a Christian is to ensure that you're not sitting under one.
Yeah, so let's jump on that one for real quick, because I know we say this a lot, but at the end of Matthew 7, the end of the Sermon on the Mount, it lays out. It's basically a 3-point sermon. One, what's a Christian look like? Yeah. What does Christian righteousness look like? And then finally, how do I become a Christian? And ask, seek, and knock is part of that. Be looking for the narrow road. Few find it.
That's right.
And then he jumps into beware false teachers. And he says, you'll know them by their fruits. And he goes on. He says, many at the last day will say, Lord, Lord, I prophesied in your name. I cast out demons. I did miracles in your name. And he'll say, depart from me. I never knew you.
Your workers of lawlessness.
And so there's a really good chance that your pastor at the church you attend, if he has bad fruits, Jesus says a bad tree cannot produce good fruits. A good tree cannot produce bad fruits. If your pastor has any of these bad fruits, he's going to probably be one of these people at the last day where Jesus says, depart from me. I never knew you.
Yeah.
And he's a ravenous wolf, which means that many of his flock, in a human sense, could have been saved if they had been under a qualified pastor.
Yeah, he says that of the Pharisees as well. They go across land and sea to make a convert, make him twice the devil of himself. He says that they slam the door in the face of those who are very near the kingdom of heaven, and they themselves will not enter.
Themselves will not enter. So one of the classic false teacher things is that the false teacher will not themselves enter into the kingdom of heaven. They don't know how to find the kingdom of heaven because they haven't found it. Yeah. And how do we know them? We know them by their fruits. Yeah. And so last week we looked at not money, lover of money, not after greedy gain. What are we looking at this week?
Well, it's primarily it's being above reproach and having a good reputation. There's a few little tidbits that I think all intermingle into that, but that's the overarching theme. Let me just open us up by reading the qualification verses, and then we can discuss them. 1 Timothy 3:2, an overseer then must be above reproach. There we go. It's got to be above reproach. 1 Timothy 3:7, he must have a good reputation with those outside of the church, so that he will not fall into reproach and the snare of the devil. Titus 1:6, namely, if any man is beyond reproach. Titus 1:7, an overseer must be, what is it you think it's going to say? Beyond reproach as God's steward. And then specific to deacons, 1 Timothy 3:8, deacons likewise must be dignified, not double-tongued, not indulging in much wine, and as we looked at last week, not fond of dishonest gain. And 1 Timothy 3:10, again to deacons, these men also must first be tested and let them serve as deacons if they are beyond reproach.
Yeah, so that's a really high standard.
Yeah.
For your pastor. So, that's now we've had examples where you have a pastor, for instance, who has a felony.
Yes.
And so we've kind of changed our views on that, having dealt with it.
Yeah.
And I think we were wrong I think you're wrong if you lay on hands somebody who has a out there record of sin that anyone can go find.
Yeah, a permanent stain on their reputation is disqualifying.
And I would argue, here's what I would argue. So let's say you had someone who had manslaughter in their past. There's a record of the crime back in 1984, whatever.
Right.
And now he became a senator, and he launched a huge campaign about, like, I used to be a murderer, now I'm going to put murderers behind bars. Everyone knows everyone.
Right.
There's been newspaper articles describing how he used his sordid past to become a hero of righteousness. I would argue that he is now beyond reproach, especially if he has proven at the same level of, proven at the same level of notoriety. He has as much fame as he had notoriety. And so this comes to an example which I know you're going to bring up. Paul.
I was.
And so I'm anticipating...
Guilty as charged.
I'm anticipating you. Paul was notorious, but then he also became famous. And how did he become famous? Well, God gave him miracle powers. He did... and the other thing is, he was famous. He was a Jew, and then he went to the Gentiles. He wasn't sent to the Jews to be a missionary, but to the Gentiles, who probably didn't even know anything about him. Yeah. So in two different ways, Paul was above reproach. In one way, he was going to people who didn't know and didn't care.
Right.
Because they didn't know about him being a Pharisee. They didn't even know or care. Yeah. But the other thing is, among the Christians, among the Jews, he was not only was he given a name by God, given fame to overcome it, but he also went to Peter and was approved by Peter, and his gospel was approved, and all this stuff.
Well, and if you wanted to go a different route with that too, I would say that being a member of the Pharisaical order, and possibly even the Sanhedrin, if he was a type of a magistrate, and so even though we would say what he was doing was wrong, he was doing it in an office
under authority that
allowed him that authority. Like the high priest sent him to go when he was on the road to Damascus.
And that's another argument too you can make here. He never did anything that was technically illegal.
That's right. So he wasn't out murdering. He was out inappropriately wielding the sword that was given to the government, in a sense.
Yeah, and then again, you think of his reproach was not among the Gentiles.
Right.
It was among the saints, too. Yeah. So the one of the scriptures you just read said, because if you bear reproach among the heathen or whatever,
with the
outsiders, then they will reproach you and you'll fall into a snare. The outsiders, there's no way that outsiders could have or would have reproached Paul for doing an inside thing like that.
Well, and also, a lot of this stuff, like what is a beyond reproach individual look like? A lot of this is wisdom. A lot of this requires wisdom to understand it. In Paul's day, if you were guilty of stealing from the king's forest in Samaria, whatever, and then you travel across the world, like, you have a fine reputation if you've conducted yourself well.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? We are providentially in a place and time where now, if you commit some federal offense, that's on the internet forever, all time. When they search Pastor Bob Hope, I just made that name up. Well, I didn't make it up, but I referenced it from non-pastor, an old actor. Pastor Bob Hope, like, not only do they find your church, but they find every Twitter post you've ever made, all of your newsworthy accolades or infamy, including federal offenses.
Yeah, that's a question. It's also a providential question.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you may have had in your youth some drunken tryst or something, or you may have made if you had multiple sexual partners, then you're disqualified. But you may have been, because the deacon one says not a drunkard.
Right.
If everybody knows that you were getting drunk every Thursday and Friday night in the bars, I don't know that you'll ever recover from that, apart from what I said about having it be that everyone knows that you've recovered from that.
Right.
If it's pretty much true that you have shown the whole world in the same opposite way, you know what I mean? Like you were drunkard one time, but now everybody knows that you're a stand-up guy and that you don't touch it, or you only drink one glass of wine at communion, or, you know, whatever.
Occasionally at a wedding.
Right.
In Cana.
If everybody knows that, then you're above reproach now. But the other thing is among the Gentiles, that's the issue.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting about that is that you do see Christians being willing to do all kinds of horrific things among the Gentiles.
Yeah.
That they don't do at church.
Sure. And that's where the standard of hypocrisy, which is leveled at the modern church, really stems from. And, you know, some of that we would roll our eyes at and be like, this is retarded. But unfortunately, a lot of it is accurate and true.
Yeah, we were talking to a guy the other day who said churchgoers are notoriously bad tippers. And they show up on a Wednesday night, roll in at a Wednesday night, there's 50 people, and one person gives $2.
Right.
And they leave a mess everywhere, and their kids are loud.
And some guy leaves a $100 bill that turns out to be a tract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I don't want to get a conversation about tipping. I think that
Yeah, I think a workman's worthy of his wager, and I think your employer should pay you enough that you're not reliant on the generosity.
I don't want to get into a
but let's
whole
not get into
conversation about it, but the point is that the outsiders can easily I think that if you have an outsider come up and say, you know, that pastor's funny because he's the worst tipper, and his wife always complains and always sends the food back.
Yeah.
And like, if you hear that multiple places, that's enough for you to say, this is not, the other option is one time I had, and maybe was being petty, but one time I had somebody on Facebook Marketplace, and they had offered something that was worth $100 for $30, and I said, yeah, I'll take it, you know. And they're like, oh, I can't sell it to you. It's broken. Is that true, or did you Google it?
And find its value.
Yeah. And then actually I looked into, I went on their Facebook page and saw that they were a small pastor, a small church. And I said, dude, you can't do this. You can't swindle me like this. Like, this is a sin.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot love money so much that you make a deal with someone and back out of it, and then tell me a lie about how it's broken now.
Let your yes be your yes and your no be your no here.
And like, this is not pastor material. And I can almost guess that guy has done that to many people.
Sure.
And so that's classic behavior of, you're not above reproach. If someone, I think of one pastor who we know very well, who, like, before we really came to know him, my wife had encountered him at school and was saying, like, and I was too stupid to realize that means he's probably not above reproach, saying, like, he's the rudest person at this church, at this school. He comes in, he blows in, and he's so cocksure and so loud and arrogant, and he argues with staff and things like that. Like, that's a good sign that you don't want him as your pastor. If he can't just fit into a normal, or if he's getting kicked out of ball games or something like that, that's, like, even the Gentiles would say, like, we don't want you around. You're not a nice person. Now, I'm not talking about you saying that homosexuality is a sin or something, but if you're getting kicked out of ball games for yelling at referees, not that I know anybody. I'm just a random example.
But go ahead.
But if you're doing that, you're not pastor material.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, you know, there's wisdom in that. Like, maybe if you're playing the Bridgestone Bruisers and they're out there throwing elbows into your daughter's face and the ref isn't calling a single foul,
well, maybe
there might be inappropriate, but by and large that's not the case, and it happens all the time, you know.
you're not. Yeah, I mean, one person may have one time, but
Sure.
we're not talking
Yeah.
about that. There's one friend we have who always swindles everything every time.
Yeah.
I would not ever consider him to be an elder,
Sure.
even if he came to Christ, even if he was completely reformed.
Yeah.
The fact is that I personally knew him to be a swindler
Yeah.
for all the time that I knew him.
That's right. Yeah.
And so it would be impossible for me to say that he's elder material.
Yeah.
Because if I knew it from the many times that I saw it, and
Yeah.
of course everybody else did too, there's no coming back from that, except for, like I said, he runs for senator. He becomes fully reformed in a sense. Everyone knows his fame and that he is a righteous man and he's proven himself. And they've forgotten everyone that you ever speak to. Now, and the deacon one says they should be tested. Well, you can just go around and say, hey, you know this person? Is he a good guy? Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think he'd be a good pastor? Is there anything about him that you remember that you don't think he's grown out of, he's not matured out of, and so forth?
Yeah.
I think that and one thing that we've, in our experience with elders who were not qualified, turns out, or this is really in a post-analysis because we didn't kick them out, but as we look at how they crumbled in our experience, we can spot now the lack of qualifications that they've had.
Yeah.
And I think all you have to do is have a bad encounter with an unqualified elder and then think about the problems that they had.
Yeah.
Like one pastor I knew and years ago, his wife was a big grouch.
Mm.
And, you know, you got to be a husband of your wife, elder's wife has to be faithful in all things. If your wife is a big grouch, then you're not qualified as an elder.
Yeah. You haven't developed a timid and quiet spirit within your wife. How are you going to do that within the body as a whole? If your wife can't submit to you, how's the church to submit to Jesus Christ? Like, you failed in the small, you'll fail in the large.
Yeah, and so as you analyze the pastor failed in a larger other thing, as you analyze his qualifications, you realize, well, also his wife was a red flag. Now, this is the important thing about digging into the scriptures and looking at these one at one, and then putting enough weight on it where someone can notice these things. Yeah. We notice them when we look at elders from the past that we knew. Yeah. And I've known several, not even associated with our church, but we've known many elders from the past who had a lack of qualifications. Actually, the wife, the mean wife, is a big one. Like I know several elders who probably were not qualified because they had a wife that was, contentious and not a good example of a faithful in all things woman.
Yeah, not to rehash the entire running your family episode and that's a big problem. In fact, it's usually, in my opinion, the number one indicator for qualified elders is like, look at the family. And if it's the typical pastor's wife or typical pastor's child, that's all you need.
Yeah, and so like when we were kids, we had a youth pastor for a short period of time who had an absolute train wreck of a reputation with outsiders. And I don't think that maybe he never overcame that either. So this happens all the time. Sure. And, you know, I think this is one of the main, a big failing in the church is that people look at having a testimony as being cool and qualifying. Yeah. But the truth is that if you have a real testimony, you're probably not qualified to be an elder. You know, the ones where, like, I had so many, well, of course, you tip into all the other qualifications. Right. I had so many girls in high school. I smoked marijuana and cocaine, and I ran drugs for the, MS-13 for 10 years or whatever.
Murdered a few people. I was a bad man.
And then everyone's like,
man. And God saved me from all of that.
I wish he could be our pastor. No, actually, there's no way for him to recover from that. I've got a question for you, though. So, I can't. Whenever my sister, one of my sisters, my elder sister, found out that I was gonna be an elder at a church, she's like, she was taken aback because she remembers me smoking cigars at her house or drinking wine with her.
Yeah.
What about that?
Well, I would say it's the duty of Christians and elders particularly, but of all Christians, to help inform the conscience of our fellow Christians on what sin is and what sin isn't. We tolerate the tyranny of the weaker brother, so as not to cause him to stumble, but we don't take it for passing judgment. And so we would then look to every other place in Scripture which says that all of Scripture is good for reproof and correction, for training in righteousness, equipping in every good work, etc. And we would then use Scripture to correct, not always in the rebuke of your sinning, but to correct in your pattern of thinking, being conformed to that of proper Scripture. Is it a sin to have had a glass of wine with your sister? Well, if it is, we're in a lot of trouble because Jesus drank wine, and that would mean he's a sinner, and therefore our entire system of religion is false.
Well, and that really tips into, and really that I'm moving into a different direction, which is that, as Doug Wilson always says, it's not whether but which.
Right.
And everyone has qualifications for a pastor.
Yeah.
They're just the wrong ones.
That's right.
Like, so for my sister, my older sister, her qualifications is you never drank, you never smoked.
Right.
And that's like the most important thing to a Baptist.
And let's be fair, none of the Baptist pastors that I know meet that qualification. Never having drank and never having smoked.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, even her, like, the standard of qualification that she imposes on you, she doesn't impose on any of the pastors that they've ever had.
But however, like, she probably never smoked or drank with one of them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's a reason, though, that the back door of the liquor store is called the Baptist store.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's probably true but the issue is, and I think that smoking and drinking is so much an interesting conversation relative to this, because this is the only thing that matters to everyone else. So you can have a wife that's absolutely contentious. Your children can be a train wreck. You can you can swindle everyone around you and always sit and barter for everything and abuse and mistreat all the Gentiles around you, flip people off in traffic, any number of things. As long as you don't smoke or drink, as long as you don't smoke and you don't drink, you're qualified to be a pastor. As long as you always wear a button-up shirt.
That's right.
And you have a goofy smile on your face and you clap people on the back when you meet them in the grocery store. You were qualified to be a pastor. No, you don't have to be faithful in any other portion of your life, as long as your reputation includes that everyone knows you don't drink and you don't smoke.
Yeah, those are those are doctrines of men and demons. They're not pursuant from scriptural.
So if the outsiders see this, though, they see this of the Baptist church and other churches. All the churches, they have one rule: you don't drink, you don't smoke.
That's right.
So is it, in a sense, you might be tempted to think it would be fair to hold me to that standard.
Right.
Although, to be, just to be clear, and this is not always true, but for many months and for a long time, I've pretty much not drunk or smoked at all, not even a little bit. That's not a standard that I'm holding to anybody.
Right.
However, just for the purpose of this conversation, just to clarify that right now, I've been pretty clean of it, just for clean living purposes. However, it's not a sin.
I saw him drink last Sunday, but
wine.
Yeah, we had some wine for communion.
Yes,
I'm just saying.
Okay, my point is, though, I don't think it's a sin.
Right.
But just so that nobody gets the impression that I'm swilling it all the time.
Right.
As of right now, I've been very clean on this stuff.
Yeah,
but
same.
But and Josh doesn't. I don't know that he drinks occasionally whenever I make him. But the thing is, though, just to be clear, but the thing is that around here, for me even to say I don't drink right now, or I haven't been very clean right now. For them, they're like, oh, so you've drunk before?
Yeah.
And that would be instantly qualifying to a lot of people who don't even attend church because of the American Bible Belt culture that we live in.
And if you live in California, they would maybe question your being a good steward based off of what type of vehicle you drive and its emissions.
Right. No, yeah. So the question is then, the reputation with the outsiders, because my argument is,
no, I know. Yeah.
so they would, because of the way that they view the church, because of the way that the church views things.
And so the question then is, in the pursuant of sacrificing things on behalf of the faith and in service to Jesus Christ, in becoming the Jew to the Jews and the Greek to the Greeks.
Right. What do we have to do? Or does it totally disqualify me? Is it something I ought to do to sort of maintain a perfect record of never smoking, never drinking? Right. If I have a child, I can't smoke. It's a boy.
I'll answer it, and you feel free to rebuttal or give your own thoughts. My instinct on this scripturally is that you are welcome to do that, and so I'm
welcome to cut back.
Yeah, I know some people who would say, I don't think that drinking and smoking is a sin, and I don't hold that standard to other people. I myself am a teetotaler because I think that it helps my witness to the outsider. I'm all for that. I would also say, though, that that what we represent as Christians is not arbitrary. We have to draw a line somewhere. For example, in the emissions. And we could take it even further. There are circles within the quote-unquote Christian community who would say your unwillingness to be accepting of abortion, or your unwillingness to be accepting of transgenderism and LGBTQ plus triangle, whatever, is a lack of love of neighbor and is not helpful to reach those people who, even if, and they wouldn't admit this, but even though they might say who are lost.
So I would have,
reached. And so there has
I would
to
have
be
a
line.
Reputation with outsiders as a hateful
You're a hateful
person.
bigot.
Right. That's right.
And so what we stand on then is the standard in my opinion, and I would say in the biblical opinion here, is truth. And truth is derived from Scripture. And so if I go, and if I go to Applebee's and I have, a martini or whatever with my fajitas, and someone approaches me, I am able from Scripture to defend that action and to say, this is what scriptural truth is. Now, I wouldn't go out with one of our members who's an ex-alcoholic and order a martini with my dinner.
Right, because you want to, you're keeping your liberty in check. You're using your liberty for the good of all.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say, is that there has to be some pursuant measure of truth within our conscience and what we limit and hold ourselves to. Let me give one example, and then I'll bounce it back to you. In my youth, I went through a program called Master's Commission at a large Assembly of God church. And the director there said to me, Scripture says that you should flee even the appearance of evil. Yeah. So I don't go to the movies, because even if I go in there to watch, Passion of the Christ or whatever, which is great among there might be an R-rated movie playing, and someone sees me go in, they don't know what movie I'm going to see. And so I must not go to the theater because the appearance of evil could be therein. Yeah.
Well, then again, if we're going to go, go with a view of whatever the outsiders, whatever they think is wrong, we should go entirely with. Well, you could easily counteract that by saying, well, that attitude in itself would make you look like a jerk to the outsiders. Right. So we cannot use, and this is where you're going with this. Right. We have to use biblical standards of what would be a legitimate reproach. Yeah. So if you're a swindler, and the outsiders say, well, he's a swindler,
No problem.
But if they say he's a real jerk and say, well, what do you mean by that? And they say,
Right.
well, last week I saw on his Facebook page that he says that not everyone gets to heaven, but
Yeah.
only the people who believe in Jesus. And I thought that was really mean.
Like, yeah, that pastor up the road's a real a-hole. He told me I couldn't live with my girlfriend out of wedlock and have sex all the time. And I was like, judgmental much. So I went to this other church.
I made a Facebook post, months ago, and then I noticed somebody that I see regularly was kind of giving me the cold shoulder for a couple of weeks, and I went out and tried to speak with him. Eventually, I warmed him back up again, But it had to do with like, not everybody is saved. There's some specifics to like you have to live a holy life. It's not the gospel is not just like say a prayer and blah blah blah. And for him, for a period of time, even as a Christian, he thought I was a mean, unaccepting, intolerant, hateful person.
Right.
So if someone says that's a hateful person, you do have to test these things. You have to say, what do you mean by that? And then they say, well, he preaches the gospel, and I think that's hateful.
I mean, by the words of Jesus Christ, like if you are following him, the world will hate you. And so there is a sense in which any true Christian has a poor reputation with outsiders in the realm of acceptance of darkness and their deeds.
Yeah, and I would argue too that cultural standards that are made up that don't have anything to do with Scripture, which have been the church carries the torch for it.
Yeah.
But so like right now, there's a cultural standard that you avoid saying that husband's the head of the wife, and that women are not to be elders, and that Eve was deceived, not Adam. You can't say anything against feminism. You can't say that George Floyd died of a drug overdose, and it's very likely that the guy who's currently in jail didn't have anything to do with it. You can't say anything against Martin Luther King Jr. because there's a 40-foot statue erected to him, and everyone agrees.
Right.
You can't say that perhaps we should be more careful how we support the Jewish, the Israel state of Israel, because they're not aligned with us. They're not Christian. Judeo-Christian is a joke. You can't say any of these things. And any outsider would get the impression in America would get the impression that I'm a hateful bigot.
Yeah.
If I said any of that stuff.
Well, and this is part of the problem with being pursuant to cultural standards. And let's use the example you brought up of being a teetotaler. That is someone who doesn't drink alcohol at all.
Right.
And I said, you're welcome to that. And I stand by that. I think that's fine. I also think, though, that you should be very clear in your stance as a teetotaler for that reason, that it's not a sin and that you are going above and beyond for the purposes to the people that you're doing it. Because what happens when you bow to the standard of cultural norms is that you create all sorts of problems with Scripture. And so, for example, if we look at the teetotaler, well, like now all of a sudden you have to bend all of the Scripture about God giving wine as a blessing to the hearts of men, makes them glad. Let the poor man drink, it says, and forget his woes for a time. And I believe it's Proverbs. Jesus Christ came as a wine bibber. They called him because he drank wine.
He didn't get drunk. No, he didn't. He wasn't a drunkard for sure.
Right.
They called him a drunkard, but he wasn't.
But now
they viewed
you
him
have
that
to
way
say,
because they were teetoters.
They were
in the
saying
same exact way.
He was a wine bibber, but like really, he was just drinking grape juice. Like there wasn't any wine at all. You've got to bend the Scripture, and so you create problems with the inerrancy and infallibility of Scripture and even the character of God when you do these things. And if we want to look at a perfect example, we could look at slavery. And the overreach of is chattel slavery a sin? 100%. And we don't want to get into the whole conversation of this. We'll do an episode probably at some point. But is all forms of slavery an inherent evil? Is a temporary debt slave an evil, sinful thing? If so, which is where we're at culturally, if we bend the knee to that, then we have a great problem because God has instructed the allowance for that in his own system of governance.
The point is that we cannot.
We got to stand on truth.
We have to stand on truth, and we need to be able to. We must, like you said. So you can say I'm never going to drink again because everybody around here is either Baptist or Church of Christ.
That's fine.
and I want to have more inroads with them.
Yeah.
However, when you use your inroads with them, you make sure that you stand on the truth.
That's right.
To say like, hey, you guys don't drink, but you know that's not you. That's a fake doctrine of men,
Right.
and that Jesus drank wine.
Sure.
And the Pharisees are a perfect example of this, because Jesus healed on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
He could have avoided healing on the Sabbath. He could have told that person, come back around tomorrow and we'll heal you up nice and good. But Jesus did not bow to the local church views. Like everybody agreed, like you don't carry 5 sticks on the staff, like you don't do blah, blah, blah. And yet Jesus in no way he didn't even choose to use his liberty to tiptoe around false
That's right.
church beliefs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so clear that Jesus did not have an obligation to the Pharisees to tiptoe around their made-up righteousness.
Yeah.
It's so clear. And someone like, well, that's Jesus. Well, yeah, he's the Lord of the Sabbath or whatever. But it wasn't just that.
Right.
They also had hand-washing rules, which he didn't ask the disciples to do. He does this over and over again. He lives in truth. And he does it in such a way where you can notice him doing it. He doesn't go out. He doesn't thwart the phony rules of the Pharisees in secret. He does everything in public too. So the reputation with outsiders is like a lot of the qualifications we see here. Certainly, all the qualifications that we've looked at. You're not a reviler. You're not a drunkard.
Yeah.
You're not pugnacious. You're not starting fights all the time. You're not a swindler. I would argue that you people, not that they would say that you're like, people might say that I'm like introverted or like I'm not a people person. I'm not talking about that, but have I wronged people? Have I lied to them?
Right.
This last year, a deacon at a church promised to help me do something, and I was going to pay him to do it and stuff. And then he abandoned me and says, I have to do this other thing instead.
Yeah. And it wasn't just
He
like
didn't say that.
pet
No.
project. It was an important thing that needed done for your family.
Yeah, and he didn't even say it. He didn't even tell me.
No, just didn't show.
He didn't show. I ended up texting him to say, hey, I'm going to go do this other thing because apparently you're not going to show up.
Yeah.
That is not a good reputation with outsiders.
Yeah.
You cannot tell people you're going to do something and then not even let them know. Like a Gentile would not treat me so poorly.
And indeed, you went with a Gentile and were treated much better work ethic.
That's right. So I paid a Gentile to do, an outsider. I paid an outsider to do what the deacon refused to do.
Yeah.
And if he had so that's perfect example.
Yeah.
Like, are you as at least as honest and fair in your dealings as an outsider?
Right. Yeah.
If outsiders would say he's kind of a swindler, kind of a whatever, he doesn't keep his word. And I'm thinking of one of my relatives who does things and then never does. He leaves this project and never comes back, and people have equipment in their yard and all that kind of stuff. That guy's not qualified to be an elder because he doesn't keep his word. He has a bad reputation.
Yeah. Well, you know what else is interesting about reputation is that it's tied up in a couple places with being double-tongued, which is kind of interesting. If you like, for instance, I'm thinking of there's an individual we talk with frequently within the body, and he asserts that many individuals that are pastoral in nature within like the Church of Christ movement, etc., hold particular doctrines publicly, but like if you really get close enough to them and they're in private, like they'll say, yeah, no, we know that's not exactly right, like this is actually what the truth is. Well, like that's a form of double-tonguedness. That's a willing to say one thing to one person to appease and then something else to someone else, either to appease or which you view as the actual truth, which if that's true, if the individual who lobbies that, and I don't know, I haven't talked to all that many. You talk with the Mammoth one quite a bit, but But like, if that is true, then that quality in itself, that they would publicly profess one thing, and if you're close and private with them, they would confess another.
Yeah.
Is disqualifying in and of itself.
Yeah.
They're double tongued.
Right. And I see that, we see that a lot.
Yep.
I mean, how many pastors do you hear from that say, well, it was a mixed crowd,
Yeah.
so I didn't want to get too deep in it, or something like that?
I don't know.
Yeah, you're just lying.
Yeah, you're just being double tongued.
You're a swindler. You're a liar.
Yep. Well, all right. So have a good reputation, obviously with believers, but also with outsiders. In the scope of Scripture and scriptural truths, and that which is actually good, and not cultural norms or man-made rules and doctrines. Don't lie, don't swindle, don't be double-tongued, stand boldly in what is true, be known as a man whose yes is yes and no is no. And this is the quality and mark of an elder and deacon within the Church of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I can't say it better myself.
Well, thanks for listening.
God bless.